Good morning and welcome in. This is 5 Clubs on Golf Channel.
Thank you for having me on.
All the way to the green. It was, whoo, boy, was that fun.
I've always wanted to be on 5 Clubs. Thanks, Gary.
Good morning. Welcome into 5 Clubs. Great to have you with us. It is nice to be home. It's nice to be in the friendly confines of our studio here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Live here on Golf Channel, also PGA Tour Radio. That is channel 92 on SiriusXM. In this program, presented by Century Insurance, we are so proud to be aligned by a company that invests in golf in great ways, not only with the United States Golf Association, but also with the First Tee. And their business is business insurance. They want to be right by you, so you should evaluate yours with them. Century Insurance, the presenting sponsor of 5 Clubs here in 2026, like they were in 2025 after being down at the Jones Cup at Sea Island and Ocean Forest. We were really thrilled to be there. We appreciate not only the hospitality, but also to be around one of the best amateur events in the world concluded yesterday. The winner of that event, we were hoping to have him this morning, but his travel is such that we're going to have him tomorrow morning. William Sides, who is a senior at SMU, is going to join us tomorrow. Another big win for him. He has won a couple of very, very good events, this being obviously an amateur event. The others that he has on his resume, collegiate events. He's moving up in PGA Tour U, so he's going to join us tomorrow. As we begin this year in our studio, we're excited about 2026, not only about what we have and what we aspire to provide to the viewer and the listener here on 5 Clubs, because we want to talk about everything in the game of golf like we did in 2025, but we're going to have more voices, more contributors, more people giving their viewpoint so that our lens can get as wide as possible on not just the sport of professional golf, but the industry of golf at large. Brad Faxon's going to join me here in less than 15 minutes. He begins another year, a part of that NBC golf team, get his thoughts on a lot of big picture stuff as well. So that is where we are on this Monday morning. And one last thing about us here, we are incredibly grateful to have the real estate that we have here to be live on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday here on Golf Channel. But last year, it was us, and it was Rex and Ryan, and those guys are going to follow us on Mondays at 9 a.m., but more morning programming. Jimmy Roberts, his program is going to come on actually before us on Tuesday mornings, so 7 a.m. Eastern time, and then on Wednesday, following us, Smiley Kaufman, who everybody is familiar with. Obviously, he's a big part of the NBC golf team himself. His program, The Smiley Show, is going to be on at 9 a.m. And then you're going to have the Vanity Index podcast with Chad Mumm. That is going to follow Smiley shows. So more programming here on Golf Channel, not only in the morning, but across the board here as the network begins another programming and broadcast year covering the world of golf. And as we start today and as we start the year, it's actually interesting because there's a significant story that really kind of crystallized itself within the last week or so, and that was the application by Brooks Koepka for reinstatement onto the PGA Tour, which is going to lead me to a grander point as we begin not only this day, this week, but this year, because the former LIV golfer has applied for reinstatement to the PGA Tour. This has been rumored. Actually, it was Fred Couples who suggested that this might happen months and months ago. And then there was a lot of smoke within the last month. And then the application was formally, according to all sources, sent to the PGA Tour office. He left LIV Golf, and that release from LIV Golf came out right before Christmas. He last competed on the PGA Tour going all the way back. It'll be 4 full years, March of 2022. He's a 5-time major champion. He is somebody who is a lead-piped, stone-cold mortal lock for the World Golf Hall of Fame. And it leads to the point about, okay, what should they do? What will they do? And I'm talking about the PGA Tour. And I think what they should do and what they will do in this case is the same thing. I think they will reinstatement. I do not think that Brooks Koepka sent in an application for reinstatement going, oh my gosh, I hope, I wish, I have no idea. I think he has a good idea, and I don't think he's being overly presumptuous. I think the most interesting thing and the one thing that is in question is when, how swiftly, or how long will it be, and what punitive damages and how punitive might they be in terms of what price will he pay for leaving the PGA Tour to begin with. I think there are a couple things with respect to that specifically. One, Brooks Koepka, when he left the PGA Tour, as somebody said to me, if you leave a job, one thing you should never do, particularly if they were good to you, don't throw toys on the way out. It's a good lesson for all of us. Yes, if you lose your job for whatever reason, yeah, you might be bitter in the moment, but you know what? You never have any idea when that might come back around, whether it be going back to that company or who knows, maybe working for the same boss that you work with when that employment ended the first time. He didn't do that. He also never lent his name to any lawsuit associated with the PGA Tour and with the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia. And thirdly, and I think that this matters pretty significantly, his relationships with the players on the PGA Tour, particularly the ones who are at the top of that food chain, the ones who have voice inside those boardrooms, who now have more voice than they've ever had, starting with Tiger Woods, is healthy. It's good. So all things being considered, I do believe, and who knows, this may come in terms of us having an idea formally in terms of the position of the PGA Tour. It could come this week, and that wouldn't surprise me, what their position is on him, and then in a grander sense, what it might be. And again, I think it's case by case. And whether they should do it, I think they should. And look, I'm speaking as somebody who covers the sport. The rank and file member of the PGA Tour, and however you want to define who is rank and file, they all have a rank and they all file for independent contract status every single year to do what it is that they do. But the ones who are at the top, the ones who have the most leverage, the ones who have the most voice, I think are going to lend voice to him being reinstated. I think that there should be some type of financial restitution that he should pay in order to return to the PGA Tour. I know Rory recently on a podcast said, look, I think that the consequences of them leaving, whether it be in general or him specifically, he said, you know what, I already think that they have dealt with their consequences, because in his mind, I wouldn't use, and it wasn't a word that he used, have been marginalized, but with respect to the traction that LIV has or hasn't gained, that in Rory's mind, the consequences have been paid. And here is the most important thing to me, is that it's a business. And a business is only as valuable as the commodities that they possess or can present to the consumer. He's a commodity that I don't know in the grand scheme of things quantitatively how many tickets he's responsible to sell, but he is important in the grand scheme of things. But one thing I would say, and this relates to all of us, because I think that this year, look, nobody knew in year 4, and LIV is on the doorstep of beginning another season themselves, how long LIV was going to last. And one thing that we heard at the outset of LIV being created was that, and many of the players who went over there said that you know, we intend to grow the game. And that seemed kind of like a glib comment. First of all, this may be semantical to a lot of people, but it's not to me. The game of golf is not professional golf. Professional golf, if you want to call it the front porch, if you want to call it a shiny hood ornament, it's not the engine. The engine is you out there, the ones who invest in buying apparel and taking lessons and getting your kids signed up for junior clinics and playing in member guests and going on buddies trips. And here's the other thing about the fracturing of the men's game at the highest level. I never thought it was going to be some type of deterrent from you and me doing what's most important to the game. The game of golf is all of it. And the game of golf is participatory. Unlike many other sports that we watch, like over the last several days, watching Wild Card Weekend, I don't intend to go out there and try to run in routes later this afternoon, nor do you. Golf is a game played by millions and millions of people, and what has happened since LIV was created is that we've seen a proliferation of not only influencers, but content creation and YouTube golf. There are a lot of people who play golf, who have an interest in golf and a keen interest, who may not even watch the TV show that is the PGA Tour. Many do, in addition to consuming a lot of YouTube golf. Golf at large has never been more protected and insulated by any fracturing of the TV show that we watch starting mostly on Thursdays and concluding on Sundays. So if this is prolonged and whatever happens with respect to Brooks Koepka returning to the PGA Tour and subsequently, if there are other players who make the choice to either leave the PGA Tour, like a few have, Thomas Dietrich, who won last year on the PGA Tour, he is headed off to LIV Golf. He's a good player, but he's not Brooks Koepka. So it's not, in the end, let's say, an even trade. So at the end of the day, whether LIV Golf goes on for the foreseeable future and people are fretting that this might hurt the game, no, the only thing it might hurt is the sport of professional golf. But the one thing that we saw last year with the ratings on the PGA Tour is that, you know what, people are watching. Now look, they had good fortune, and it wasn't just Rory McIlroy completing the career Grand Slam or Scottie Scheffler continuing to achieve at a level that we have not seen since Tiger in his heyday, winning 19 golf tournaments over the last 4 seasons. You got to go back to Tiger, whether it was the beginning of his career in full, that first full season in 1997, which over the next 4 years, he won 22 times. Scottie Scheffler's won 19 times. Those things alone are traction for the TV show. So if you're thinking we can't go on like this, yeah, we can. Because for whatever it is that's going on over there or going on over here, I'm not less motivated to book tee times. And here's one last thing, whether it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, the game of golf has never had more places, more enticing for you and me to go and play, whether it be Colorado or Oregon or Nebraska or Wisconsin or North Carolina or South Carolina or Florida. The game of golf is thriving, and that's not going to wane, and it's not going to be put in a tenuous position because this player may play here and that player may play there. It's interesting, it's noteworthy, for the TV show, not for me and you when it comes to playing. All right, we take a break. Somebody who plays, God, he loves it. Loves it as much as anybody I know. His thoughts on what might transpire this year, but also some of the things that happened last year, including with the guy that he works with, Rory McIlroy. Brad Faxon of the NBC Golf Team joins me. His thoughts on some big picture items, including his own perspective on if and when Brooks Koepka will get reinstatement on the PGA Tour. We begin our year in studio after being down at the Jones Cup last Wednesday at Sea Island. It's nice to have you with us. Home on Golf Channel and PGA Tour Radio's SiriusXM's Channel 92. We're back right after this. Back in this Monday edition of 5 Clubs, Golf Channel and PGA Tour Radio's SiriusXM's Channel 92. This segment brought to you by Century Insurance. They are a presenting sponsor, and they are in the business of business insurance. So if you are evaluating yours or need to, let them take a look. They've been in the business for over 100 years, trusted by so many businesses around the world. His voice is trusted as much as anybody's. An 8-time winner on the PGA Tour, twice on the Ryder Cup team, a big part of the NBC Golf Team. And normally his backdrop is of a location that includes the most obscene, gluttonous collection of Scotty Cameron putters. Today, from the friendly confines of a very serene office, he is Brad Faxon. Good morning, my friend. How you doing?
Hey, good morning. It's nice to be able to spend a few minutes with you today.
Always with you. Let me start with this Koepka thing because obviously it's a big story to start the year. And, I think, look, Brad, I think every year since LIV was created, we're thinking, okay, where is it all going? Now we see for the first time a big name player, one of the most significant players to depart the PGA Tour, apply for reinstatement. What do you think's going to happen? What do you think should happen?
Well, there's a couple scenarios I think might happen. Yesterday, Brooks Koepka was out at Atlantic Fields, the new Discovery Lands property close to the Grove, Michael Jordan's course, where a lot of the top PGA Tour players around here are members and like to practice. I heard he was in a great mood. I didn't get to see him. So I'm thinking something maybe extraordinary might happen today. And there's a few scenarios that you've talked about in the first segment. The player directors that are on the policy board have to make a big choice here. And most of them, and most of the talk we've heard over the last few years with LIV, is they're reluctant to let these top players come back without some sort of penalty. What are they going to have to do in order to get some access back to the PGA Tour? But then you have Brian Rolapp, the new commissioner, who is not a traditionalist, that has really made some changes in the upcoming schedule to tighten everything up, to have more what we were calling signature events. And maybe Rolapp will suggest to these player directors that we let Koepka come back and have more access than some of the player directors would have liked. I think this is going to be a really, really interesting situation in what unfolds, because if the PGA Tour can get back some of the top players that went to LIV, there could be a whole new landscape. It'll be interesting to see if anything happens this early before the tour starts.
Brad, also, because he is one of the biggest names, one of the most high-profile players, don't you think it also is something where it's sending a message to other players, whether it's immediately or, let's say, at the end of this year, that there is a pathway? And it doesn't mean that everyone's going to be treated equally. That's the other thing. Nobody's treated equally in professional sports. The best players seem to find their way back onto the field before players who are more disposable. Don't you think that's another part of this?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and whatever the system was to get access out here on the PGA Tour, the best players always find a way to get out here. And, it's going to be interesting because all these players that are on the LIV Tour have contracts too. And there's no way the LIV Tour is going to allow a player, let's just say Jon Rahm, who might have 3 years or 4 years left on his contract, to just leave and come back to the PGA Tour. I don't really think there's a scenario either where players are going to get to play both. I think it's going to be an all or nothing, where if the tour does want the top players like Bryson, like Brooks, like Rahm, will we get Cam Smith? Who else would be part of that? And who has, eligibility too? I think that's a big part of it. What players would still be exempt to be on the PGA Tour? Tyrrell Hatton, who just left, would he want to come back? And whenever this decision's made, are players like Thomas Dietrich, who just left to go to the LIV Tour, is he going to regret that if there are big changes made? I think this is going to be a really, really interesting week.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and you're right in terms of, I totally agree. There's no way that the PGA Tour is going to say, well, and in the case of Brooks, we know he's not playing LIV. He's gone. But others, there's no way they're going to permit them to dip their toe in both pools. It's either you're coming back here and that's it. There's no doubt. Let me ask you about some things that you were a party to and a witness to last year, and that is Scottie Scheffler. Look, we're 4 years into this in terms of a level of production that we haven't seen since Tiger, which was for much, much longer. But I'm talking about 19 wins starting in what was February of 2022. It's not even February of 2026, and that's 19 wins from the first in Phoenix to the last one last fall. What do you think are the dynamics that exist as to why this will likely continue?
I've said this on air that I think Scottie Scheffler is the most organized player on the PGA Tour. And I mean that throughout his life. He's got every part of the game that you want to have is seemingly mastered. He's an incredible driver of the golf ball. I think he has some power in reserve. I think we saw that at the Hero Challenge in December in the Bahamas. How far he was hitting it. His new driver is really something that he likes. He's been the best iron player by a mile. around the greens. He's magical. His putting improvement since going to Phil Kenyon is remarkable. How he's gotten into the top 20 ranks on the PGA Tour. He's done everything he needs to do to keep improving. I think he doesn't tell us everything about what's in his mind, about how competitive he is, how hard he works, how much he wants to win. But off the golf course, I think is where he achieves more than everybody else. He's got a great family life. He was raised the right way by his parents who follow him around. They're very close, great marriage, now a new father. I don't know that it doesn't look like anything outside of golf can affect him in a negative way. He doesn't look complacent. I don't think money's what's driving him, Gary. And he's so far ahead of all the other players. They got to get to work.
Rory, who you work with, and I know you spent some time with him yesterday, you mentioned Scotty's putting improvement, Rory as well, in terms of the reliability that he was. You can go through all of his putting stats, markedly better in 2025, and obviously won 3 monster events on the PGA Tour. You add what he did at the Ryder Cup, the Irish Open, another Harry Vardon Trophy. One of the things you did, and I'm not surprised by this because you want people to think of putting as an athletic endeavor, that you shouldn't be static. You wanted to eliminate him having practice putting strokes. Take people through what the philosophy of that was and what the intent of doing that was.
Well, for a lot of players, when you mentioned athleticism, I was under Bob Rotella's tutelage early in my career, and one of the things we did early when I was playing to try and keep me to be a good putter for a long time was to stay athletic, stay instinctive, and really trust that first instinct. And I think that the trap that any player can fall into, not just a PGA Tour player, there's so much information out there, Gary, and you can get on YouTube now. You can go anywhere and find some kind of golf or putting lesson. And I think when I first met Rory, he was a little bit more static. I think everybody that's played any part of this game can sometimes feel that they're reading an instruction manual where you're trying to remember what to do rather than just playing around and using your creativity to play this game and keeping it simple. I think Bob Rotella has been a big part of that for Rory. When I putted some of my best years, I didn't use a practice stroke at all. I was talking to Rory yesterday at the Bears Club where he was practicing before leaving last night to fly to Dubai to have his first 2 tournaments on the European Tour. And we can't remember the last time he's made a practice stroke. And he says the only time he might do it is on a longer putt, a side of the ball where he makes some long and loose strokes. And I'm so proud of him because he's 37 years old now, and he's just had his best putting year. He finished, depending on what statistic you look at, he finished 9th in strokes gained putting for a season. When players like Scheffler and Rory have a great putting year like that, they're hard to be beaten. And I think what Rory said to me about why he thinks he putted so well last year, it was just one word. It was acceptance, Gary. And maybe that's underrated. What does acceptance mean? But, you have to accept every putt you hit, whether they go in or whether they don't go in. And I think how you respond to missed putts is an art. And how can you use how your mind works to keep putting better and better? And acceptance is something that I think Rory really felt like when he was hitting good putts that didn't go in, previously that would get him down a little bit or a little bit frustrated like it does for anybody. And I think that's just a real big reason why he played and putted so much better this year.
Brad, I was lucky enough to do that instructional series with you at a place you love so much, Old Sandwich. And I'll never forget you telling me early in your career, I believe you were at Disney, and you went up to Ben Crenshaw and you wanted to talk about putting and your putting. And I think he said something about flexing knees, like movement, like don't ever get super still. It can be the most subtle thing. Wasn't that it? Something about flexing knees?
It was extraordinary. I was with an instructor named Gary Smith who worked for David Ledbetter. We were at the Disney tournament, like you said, at the Palm Golf Course, and Ben Crenshaw was all by himself on a Tuesday afternoon. This would have been 1988 or 89. And Gary wanted to take some video of Ben's stroke. And when we talked to Ben, he admitted that he wasn't putting that well at the time. And we were both amazed that Ben Crenshaw would ever admit that he's not putting well or that he wouldn't putt well all the time. And he said two things that they really blew us away. And your memory is great, because the first thing he said was he always tried to make his backstroke longer than his follow through, which is contrary or opposite to what we've always been taught about taking the putter back low, slow, follow through, accelerate. And then the next thing he said was, I tried to let my head and my knees move a little bit. He says the putting stroke is a mini swing. There has to be some weight shift in there. And Gary Smith dropped the camera. We're like, what are you talking about? And what that really helped me was when I was over the ball, I said, okay, so I don't have to lock myself in. I was trying to feel like my head was always in a vice, that I wouldn't let it move. And it just gave me some sense of freedom. And that freedom was a softer feeling in my arms, the ability to flex and extend my wrists, which made me or allowed me to feel the head weight of the putter. And then it softened the muscles in my upper back between the shoulder blades. I felt like that really, really enabled me to have that longer, maybe even faster backstroke and not try to lock in and never move. And from that moment on, my putting stats went skyward, upward, better. And I'll never forget that a few hours we spent together on that putting green.
I'll never forget you sharing that with me, among so many things you shared, not only with me, but with the viewer over the course of doing that whole series. Let me ask you about where we're headed, which is the road to contraction, less events. It appears this will be the last Sony Open. It appears the last Farmers Insurance. Don't know with Maui how Hawaii, it appears, might be going away altogether, possibly starting after football ends. Is contraction good, not only in terms of less events, but less fully exempt players?
I said Brian Rolapp, the new commissioner, is not a traditionalist. I am, and I have a soft spot, of course, for the Sony Open. And being a Northeasterner, to be able to go to Hawaii for 2 weeks to start your year was amazing. And I get it. The monster the NFL is, we were up late last night watching that Patriots win. Everybody wants to watch football. And we think of the Waste Management in Scottsdale, that event and how everything's planned around the Super Bowl. And Rolapp's even talking about getting that event after the Super Bowl. He's got experience from the NFL and media. And if you want more eyeballs watching our golf tournaments, maybe this is one way to do it. And are we going to see more fields like, we see at the AT&T last year when McIlroy won there, some of these big signature events. And if they just keep stacking up on top of each other, there's going to be a lot of guys left out of here. And I love the story of the unheralded or the underdog being able to achieve great things. So this may be the last of what we would call the traditional years in 2026, and a massive change in the schedule after this, Gary.
Yeah, look, if they choose the idea of basically passing until football's over, one thing I would do, why not play the first event in the week between the conference championship games and the Super Bowl? You whet everybody's appetite, then you get out of the way of the Super Bowl, and then you play your second event after, because everyone's dying for something to watch when we have no football after the AFC and the NFC determine champions, and then we have that 2-week window before the Super Bowl. All right, let's get you out of here. 5 quick questions to go with Brad Faxon. There are very few places you have not played. What's a place you haven't that you either intend to or you're dying to that you never have?
Believe it or not, I've never been to Bandon Dunes. And
That's right.
I could knock off, 5 of the best courses in the top 100. I feel like I might, I'm bragging here a little bit, but I feel like I've played at least 80, depending on whose list you look at, of the top 100 courses, definitely in the U.S. I knocked off Royal Dornoch a couple of years ago, which was one I hadn't played. I went to Tara Iti a couple times now in New Zealand, which might be the best place I've ever been to. I saw Matt Kuchar just a couple days ago at Atlantic Fields. He said that's his favorite course in the world. So I got to say Bandon Dunes.
Yeah, you of all people, for you to go there, and it's not just, yeah, all the golf courses are wonderful. For you to see, it's clockwork, the way that they execute, all these people who've made the pilgrimage there, and they get you from one place to the other. You will love it. All right, the best meal, and by the way, I feel like I've seen a lot of the meals that you and Dory have had this year. You share on Instagram a little bit. The best meal you guys had this past year, where was it?
That's a tough one because when you go to Italy, every place is great. I'm very partial to a place down here in the West Palm Beach area. It's a newer restaurant called the Blue Door. My brother-in-law put this a team together, and they have a chef from Brazil. It's awesome. So get
Blue Door.
When you come down here, it's spectacular.
Okay, this is going to be hard for you. Your favorite logo?
I don't think it's that hard. I've been saying Marion my whole life. When I first
so
went,
have I.
Yes. When I played the 1981 U.S. Open as a 19-year-old, and I become enthralled with that logo. I have the wicker basket in my workshop where I normally do my interviews from. I see it every day. It's the best.
I think it is too. The Scotch broom, the combination of the colors as well. All right, V-neck, crew neck, or hoodie?
Crew neck. I'm so skinny and long neck. A crew neck's way better to me than a V-neck.
All right, give me your 3 favorite locker rooms. I know one of them's not far from where you're sitting right now, so I couldn't say one because it would be too easy. Your 3 favorite.
Jeez. Well, we've talked about 2 of them already, and you mentioned Seminole. When you go in there, it's extraordinary. I think almost every club in the world would like to have something like Seminole does. I love the intimacy of Old Sandwich's locker room.
Yes.
The feeling when you go in there, I think particularly the staff that works there, the whole team at Old Sandwich, that's a real happy place for me. And I got to think deep for the third one. I don't know that when you go into Pine Valley and see the history there, all the great pictures of all the great chairmen of the club, you get to stand there at that bar and have a drink and talk to anybody there. Everybody has an interesting story. So those are some pretty easy choices right there, Gary. You got Seminole, Pine Valley, and Old Sandwich.
Yeah, the other thing about Old Sandwich, it may be the best lunch menu. Honestly,
Yes.
It's like I want every single thing on the left side and the right side. Great staff, great people. Listen, thank you for doing this. Great to start our year into studio with you. I hope to see you soon enough. Thanks so much.
Always great being with you, Gary. Thanks so much. Love your show.
Okay, there is Brad Faxon, big part of the NBC golf team. Those are winning words presented by Century Insurance. Business insurance is their business. Evaluate yours with them. We take a break, come back. Think about this year and think about not only the major championship venues in men's and women's golf at the highest level, but there are some places that are going to be showcased this year that are as special as anywhere in the world. We continue Monday edition 5 Clubs, Golf Channel and PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92 on SiriusXM. Back right after this. Welcome back in this Monday edition of 5 Clubs live here on Golf Channel and PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92 on SiriusXM. One note, the lineup on SiriusXM, Wagyu Filet, 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. You now get Brendan and Johnson there. This segment is brought to you by Peter Millar. You know that walnut window pane jacket that was up for the winner of Club 5? Well, that's what this is, and you can get it yourself at petermillar.com. Now, as the commissioner of Club 5, or as the club owner or manager, I, of course, have to have the jacket myself, but this same jacket, I promise you, I do not wear a 46 reg like Scotty Scheffler does, but this same jacket is headed to Dallas, Texas, because he was the recipient of it last year. A new jacket up for grabs for Club 5. We will begin that journey in just a couple of weeks when we have some of the best players in the world have their first or second starts. Scottie Scheffler will begin his year at the American Express. But again, Peter Millar, when it comes to everything that I wear, I can now say officially 16 years. It's all I've worn. It's all you need when it comes to your lifestyle, whatever your lifestyle might be. Go to one of their retail stores or petermillar.com. And Scottie Scheffler won Club 5 because not only did he win 6 times, he won 2 major championships, winning the PGA Championship at Quail Hollow and obviously winning the Open Championship as well for the first time. And when you consider the major championship venues in the game of golf, which are the weeks that not only golf gets beyond kind of the bounds of this nice boulevard that it kind of cruises down, but it bursts into the mainstream of sports. But also when it comes to specifically the Masters tournament, it's such a cultural event. People who don't play golf, there are certain things that they want to go to. They want to go to Radio City. They want to go to Lincoln Center. They want to go to Rockefeller Center and all these other great venues like Wimbledon, the All England Club. Well, as we take a look at the men's golf major championship schedule this year, the Masters tournament, and of course it's always been golf's global renewal, but it's now really golf's global festival of golf with kids that precede Masters Week. After we're going to get to one of the other events that makes up what is now a fortnight at Augusta National. Now they go on to the PGA Championship. They held the championship Aronimink in Newtown Square, Pennsylvania, where I went to this past fall. What a great golf course, tremendous land, great history. Great culture of a club. May 14th to the 17th after a restoration by Gil Hanse, who lives just, within the shadows of the club itself. That is where he makes his home. So that Donald Ross golf course with the Gil Hanse, Jim Wagner, and the Cavemen restoration will play host to the PGA Championship. Gary Player won it there in 1962. And then back to Shinnecock. Think about the people who have won at Shinnecock in the modern era. It returned to the U.S. Open Rota in 1986. It was Ray Floyd, that finger point and that stare when he chipped in late in that final round. And then beyond that, Corey Pavin, Retief Goosen, and most recently, the aforementioned Brooks Koepka, and then on to the Open Championship at Royal Birkdale. The roll call of champions there, Wrong. The last, of course, was Jordan Spieth in 2017, maybe the most mesmerizing half hour of major championship golf in a final round. And I don't know how long the list is. Maybe the most significant bogey ever made in major championship golf, because it looked like he might have made a 7. He makes a 5, and then he goes on a flyer, and you're going, how did that happen? And I'm not the only one who thought that. Matt Kuchar, who was the guy to bear witness to all of that, playing alongside of him. So that's the men's side of the ledger. Let's take a look at the women's major championship rota this year. And a notable change. Look, I was somebody who was certainly partial to the first women's major being out in the California desert. I understand big business and Chevron stepped in, but they make the move to Memorial Park that people are certainly familiar with, playing host to the Houston Open. There are a couple things about it. I think the golf course will be more entertaining than Carlton Woods was. And also, it is really very close in proximity to downtown Houston. I think it'll work exceptionally well when it comes to crowds. And then when you look beyond that, the U.S. Women's Open to famed Riviera, of course, it'll play host to the Genesis Tigers event, one of the great golf courses in the world, and then on to Hazeltine that has so much history for the KPMG Women's PGA Championship. The next home Ryder Cup in the United States will be back at Hazeltine, which played host in 2016, that being June 25th to the 28th. The Amundi Evian Championship. Look, the setting is sublime. The golf course, I'm not a big fan of, but boy, did they have drama last year, that being in July 19th to the 12th. And then finally, the AIG Women's Open. I credit AIG for stepping up the way that they did following KPMG making an investment into women's major championship golf with the purse at Royal Lytham in St. Anne's. And of course, so much history on their side. But look, we cover all of these big events, and of course that's one of the driving forces of what we do here. But as evidenced by where we started our year last week at the Jones Cup, we will not only speak at length about some of these other events in golf, but we will also be at some of these events. We intend to originate live from some of the events you're getting ready to look at on the screen. But think about where, first of all, the Augusta National Women's Amateur, it didn't take long. Why would it? The stage is the best stage in all of golf that will precede Masters Week. And then following that, the Curtis Cup, that event that happens every 2 years. The Curtis Cup and the Walker Cup, it's really not even close in terms of the Rhoda. Bel Air, they've undergone a restoration themselves. That amazing golf course under the stewardship for so long of the little pro Eddie Merrins for so long. And then the U.S. Senior Open at Scioto, the place where Jack Nicklaus fell in love with golf in Columbus, Ohio. Notable that Tiger's going to have his birthday a couple weeks after his actual birthday, which was December 30th. His birthday, I believe, is this week at the Breakers. Will he be at the U.S. Senior Open in pursuit of USGA Championship number 9? We hope to be there and to broadcast live. And then the U.S. Women's Amateur at the Honors Course, which again, a Pete Dye original design with restoration work from Gil and Jim and the Cavemen themselves. And then the U.S. Amateur, we were just talking about Marion and the work, again, Gil Hance and their great team. It was not only a restoration of some of the design elements, what they've done in terms of their infrastructure and their irrigation system. I was at Marion this past May, and not as if you went there and you thought you were looking at, golf on an analog television. It is so pristine now in terms of the modernization of the turf conditions and the irrigation system. And then, of course, the Walker Cup, they're going back to back, and they go to La Hinch, one of the great golf courses in the world, but probably possessive of more quirk and nuance, including the Dell hole, a blind par 3, and then finally the President's Cup at Medina, which of course has great history, but Jeff Ogilvy and his design team with Mike Cocking and Robin Mead, a total transformation of that golf course. And let us end with one more event. We announced this right before we took our little hiatus in the middle of December, and the registration for the Heartbeat, which is a new event, 2-person teams. We will have one team representing every state. So the Heartbeat sold out their tee sheet for the year in Homer, Nebraska on New Year's Eve in less than an hour. Well, there are spots available, and we already had teams from whether it be the state of Texas or the state of Nebraska. We have more than one team that's already registered. We will do a random draw, so it will be one team from each state, as well as the District of Columbia. That is August 2nd to the 5th. So we will do our show from there. We hope you will be a part of the Heartbeat. Go to Landman's website to register you and a partner for 3 days of a golf competition where we're excited to bring 5 clubs to and to partner with Will Anderson and his great team. We take a break, some final thoughts, set up a Tuesday on 5 clubs right after this. Welcome back in. Last couple of minutes here on this Monday edition of 5 Clubs. Rex and Ryan, their podcast will follow us. This segment brought to you by Peter Millar. Like I said, this window pane walnut sport coat that I am wearing today, that Scotty Scheffler will have the same jacket. You can get it as well. And guess what? You can get great savings. Sale going on website wide at petermillar.com. So go there for amazing savings across the board on their website for the best lifestyle brand that there is, way beyond the game of golf. One note, I got a text from Dan Hicks a couple of minutes ago. He said, Brad Faxon very effectively using the fax machine in his backdrop. Excellent branding. Good catch from Dan Hicks. Tomorrow on this program, a couple of contributors to 5 Clubs. Everybody's very familiar with Gabby Herzig being a contributor, one of the best writers in the game of golf for The Athletic. A new contributor who you're going to hear a lot from in 2026 from the Sports Business Journal, Josh Carpenter. The business of golf, of which there is a lot going on. Looking forward to his insight throughout the year. So Gabby Herzig, Josh Carpenter tomorrow on this program, as well as William Sides, who is the winner of the Jones Cup. William turned an even par yesterday. It was a bunched up leaderboard, and then he made 3 straight birdies, birdied the par 3 17th, had a cushion. He closed it out. The senior from SMU by way of Tulsa, Oklahoma, is going to join us on the show tomorrow. So looking forward to all of that as well. And by the way, if you took a look at the leaderboard of the first event on the Korn Ferry Tour, you're going, wow, the leader's 11 under with 1 round to go. That's after 1 round. 11 under leads. If you shot 5 under yesterday at the Korn Ferry Tour, you're in a tie for 48th. It's a tough league. Have a great Monday, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.